This video is going to be based on teaching you how much your chest is actually involved in kettlebell sport and a whole lot of kettlebell for that matter. A lot of people are asking, well, how can I build my chest? How did I build my chest? I do very, very, very little amount of bench pressing to develop pecs. What I do have is work on posture and work on loosening up the tissue. Back to what I said at first, but how much kettlebell has to do with chest. Think about every time you rack the kettlebell. When I rack the kettlebell, to keep this weight from rolling away, rolling lateral from my midline of my body, is your chest. There's a lot of chest, a lot of lat. So the heavier we get, the more this becomes noticeable. Okay? So right now, my shoulder is being pulled down and away from my body. That is the action of your pec to keep that shoulder, to stabilize the shoulder and also control where the elbow is. So we notice this motion, pec getting pulled when I rack the kettlebell. Just feel your pec. Feel how much of it is actually on, especially the sternum and the clavicular area right here. So that's why when you get some of the older videos I've done about pressing to develop chest with one kettlebell is going up and in. It's just like flies. So kettlebells have a whole lot to do with your chest. We're not trying to develop it and make it larger. That makes it harder for kettlebell sport. But let's go back to what kettlebell sport is. Kettlebell sport is based on repetition, high repetition. So, right now, we clean. Jerk. Now, as I take these bells down and absorb, they're pulling this shoulder girdle down and in. We're absorbing it. So, all the musculature in the midline of your body, keeping that absorbed, and your traps, your SCM, all sorts of neck musculature gets really, 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 really worked. Okay, so pec development happens. Strength happens with kettlebells, and I'm not even pressing them away. We're stabilizing and absorbing. So now, here's what we do, because this tissue gets so very tight. You notice a lot of people that do bodybuilding, motion, powerlifting, they're trying to get these weights overhead, and their elbows are kind of out far. We want to be able to get as good of an overhead positioning as we can to rest this weight. We don't want to, this is hard. This is inefficient for our body. This is me leaning. Now I can stabilize here. I have to have enough range of motion in that joint to clear some of this area. So if I've been bodybuilding for whatever, 15, 20 years, 10 years, and I've developed a lot of musculature, and I go into kettlebell sport, or you go from Olympic lifting into kettlebell sport, most people are out here. And this is where I see a lot of CrossFit athletes snatching a kettlebell, looking like this to get it overhead, because they're so, maybe the range of motion isn't there, because with a bar, we're out here. So the more you get used to it, this is the position, and this is the snatch that happens, until you work on getting those arms as up overhead as you can. So we're going to do a couple things. We've lost one of the ball. It's over. Do you have the pink orange one? Okay, so we've lost it again. Here it is. We're going to do a couple things. And my favorite thing is definitely not a lacrosse ball. These are therapy balls from Jill Miller, yogatuneup.com. A couple other softer balls. Because remember, we're trying to work on different layers of the tissue. So you have to have something that gives a little bit. So these balls are great. First thing I'm going to do is use this edge, nice pillar in the gym, and we're going to work on getting right on the corner, traps, levator. And we're going to get into that area and just let your hand, we can work on rotation, external rotation. We can move the neck around away from the ball. We can work down into, whoa, there's some right there. So now, what I'm going to do is go down onto the clavicle, and I'm going to work over down into the pec. You notice that I'm trying to take this ball and get as much tissue as I can. These are really grippy, nice size. They have alpha balls that are a little larger. Everything is going to have a different effect on your tissue. This works really well for me because I've used the alpha ball, which is almost twice the size, for a year. So once I'm in here, I'm in the pec and pec minor. So now I can also work getting my arm overhead and move laterally into trying to create a separation from the front delt and the pec. Right in that corner where that tissue gets kind of pushed on a lot with kettlebells because they're coming down. A lot of people aren't absorbing it to their legs, so just letting the tissue take the work. Trying to loosen up some of that skin, underlying fascia, and the delt itself. So now I'm in the front delt, loosening that up, and then rolling into the medial delt. That's why I don't use a lacrosse ball, I use a softer ball, because I can feel areas like your acromion process, right over here on the delt, where the delt connects. I don't want a hard ball. I want something that can give and allow me to get that tissue really close to where it attaches to the bone. So once I've done that, I'll show you a couple other ones. Another great tool for this is a Theracane, or this is a body back buddy. If you don't have a wall or something like that, this is a wonderful tool to reach some of those areas. And once I find a spot, then I can work on range of motion, and I can change pressure level, So this works really, really well. You can also get in spots back here that otherwise you would need a partner for. So now, let's take that, we're going to go over here. I'm going to put that guy. You can go over to what I call barbell block. So, this is a road yoke. A lot of people do a barbell setup. The problem with the barbell is just like the problem with the lacrosse ball. It has one density and one thickness, and it's a lot. So, what I'm going to do is put that trap area right under this thicker bar, okay? Now, instead of letting your hand hang here, remember this job is to keep this tense and keep it safe. Okay, so I want to turn that tension off. Instead of just pushing up here, what I'm going to do is take a band and I'm going to reach up pretty high and just grab. Now I've turned this off, okay? So now this is kind of hanging down. Now I'm going to push and I'm going to move around a little bit. And the tissue is so much more pliable because it's not trying to hold that weight of the arm up. The shoulder and the arm is getting pulled down, so now I'm loosening it up. I can rotate side to side. I'm still holding. I can change my position if I want to. I can lean. I can go back. I can roll back into that upper and mid. Whoa, there we go. Back of the shoulder blade. Move my head away from it. A lot of stuff coming off there. So I'm going to treat this your tissue like layers of an onion, not just driving right to the center if you use a bar, but already I'm starting to feel way looser. If you build a lot of muscle can act like a doorstop. If I have a lot of traps, a lot of delt, and I try to get my arm over, think about that muscle contracting and getting hard and stiff. So then this becomes what happens unless you get those tissues to be able to be tense when they need to be, and not as tense as they always are just by being tense all the time. So let's go back over here. There's another way. I'm going to start working more into the front, the shoulder, and bicep. You see a lot of people trying to do this on the ground. The problem with the ground is the angle for your arm. I want to be on something that I can let the arm be down and go through a range of motion. So I'm going to elevate, just like we did last week with the Battle Star for the bicep, but I'm going to get in the pec. So now, whoa. Now I can use that pec and that front delt, and this really grips the tissue. I can go back into internal rotate, wow, behind me. So I'm turning that front off by activating the back. Right about there, I'm in the front delt and that pec, and I can come back out and go in the front, really work on that shoulder area. I can even roll and rotate into the side, the medial delt. You can go down a little bit, and I keep playing in different positions of this. Okay, so this feels so much better. So much better. I feel already way higher on this side. And that's just working the pecs and the traps, scalene area. I haven't even worked the lats. So you can imagine if I'm loosening up the lats as well, I'm going to get this really nice overhead position just by doing a couple of these things. But it's not just one. Multiple things. Try different things. I'm going to do a couple jerks and you'll see. I'll be able to feel it right away. Even that feels more loose. Oh yeah. Notice the difference? It's going to rotate. Notice the difference? Right weight is much farther back. I can get better overhead positioning. Oh, it feels really weird. So until I correct this, I'm going to feel lopsided. I'm going to work on the left side this time. Take time to stop talking and breathe. I'm trying to match that up. Is there a difference? Yeah, feels like it. And just looking up, it's slightly behind. My right arm has a much more free range of motion. So there you go. Try that for your overhead work. Loosen up those pecs and see if you can't even breathe better by not having all this tissue compressed down, especially with kettlebells.